Hey guys and gals, welcome to the Friday, April 28th episode of Ghost to Ghost PM with my special guest host, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch. What's up, buddy?
Greetings, salutations.
Hope you're hope you're ready for this. I got a
I'm as
lot of
ready as we
folks
can be, man.
interested in these American legends.
All right, so I got some visuals for the background a little bit. I've got some stuff straight out of my old brain pan that I can remember, and one really weird tale that I cannot verify. I have looked and looked, and as far as I can tell, there are no records of this particular train. But at the same time, those animals are out there.
Oh yeah.
So how you want to jump into this, man? Both feet or just one? Want to touch your toe in it?
Yeah, well, just jump in, dive in, man. It's dark, or the moon's out, the water's cool. Just dive in.
All right, bud. So the the Americas in general have a really weird arrangement of myths and legends. Unlike Europe, Africa, India, Asia, if you go from one region in Europe to another region, you find an entirely different batch of legends and myths that might be similar but are not the same, right? In the Americas, there are a handful of features that are ubiquitous across almost all of their cultures. You have the basic
Mm-hmm.
plumed serpent, you have the thunderbird, you have the Nahani, the Sasquatch, the Sioux, I can't remember the name, Yuani Sudi, hold on, Junwi Sunsi of the Cherokee.
Mm.
Uh, these are all different, but at the same time, they're also carried by every single verified the cultures that we have actual stories from all share these stories. And it comes down to a flying snake, a big ass bird, little people in the forest, and big hairy guys in the forest, and an occasional lake monster
Mm-hmm.
floating around here and there.
Yeah.
River monster, sea monster. You pick your monster. There's a legend for it. But unlike Europe, the similarities between these myths and legends are so closely related, they are almost definitely derived from the same source. So it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility for the very first arrivals in North America or South America, for that matter, whichever way that occurred. There seems to be some debate on that.
Yeah.
Uh, brought these legends with them in some way. Like it might not even be recognizable today as the same legend, but they do this. So I've got a few videos lined up over here for us. And this one's particularly long. I mainly want to get to the photographs of it and whatnot, but I'm going to let Mr. Bob Gimlin
Mm-hmm.
explain this bit himself because he does such a magnificent job. This is why I love YouTube. Can y'all hear that?
Yep.
This is the beauty of living across the street from the police department, down the road from the hospital, and next door to the fire department. I
Oh
get
yeah,
sirens
yeah,
all
yeah.
the time. What was I saying? Oh yeah, no, Mr. Bob Gimlin. He does a magnificent job. He is an excellent narrator. He does his own research and he looks into the individual cases himself. Right? He contacts the people that were involved, the children of the people that were involved. He really digs into it. This particular case is the case of, what did I call it? The Mayaka Mayaka skunk ape. So back in, I believe, the mid 90s, a group of photographs came out of Florida that seemed to depict some type of a furry bipedal creature
Mm-hmm.
that had been discovered and photographed. And this one of the best photographs of one of these creatures ever produced. It's almost as good as the was it Patterson film.
Yeah.
The main issue with it is that it's not a film, it's just a couple of photographs. And only one of them is really recognizable. I'm going to let him explain it. It's about 4 minutes right here at the very beginning. And then we get the photograph. I'm going to pause it on the photograph and then we'll go from there. All right.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Sounds good.
Hi, I'm Bob Gimlin. I tend to steer clear of video analysis because we are talking about a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry, which is the sole function of deceiving the eye, designed to manipulate perception and transport the imagination away from reality, even if only for a little while. In my opinion, there is no conclusive video evidence of Bigfoot, which is more or less what I would expect from the creature described. But the Mayaka ape photos are worth some scrutiny. The two photos have one of two outcomes. Either this is a hoax, or it isn't. Some aspects of these photos lead me to believe that this is an outright hoax.
What do you see there?
I'm very familiar with that photograph, and yes, I see two glowing orange-red eyes. I see a very, very familiar beard, actually. Looks
Yeah.
a little bit like you. But yeah,
Wasn't me.
definitely,
I haven't been to Florida.
definitely furry shoulders and back. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that photograph.
Right. It's one of the more commonly depicted photographs when you're talking about things like skunk ape. But can I point out a feature over here that almost
Go
no
for it.
one seems to notice? Just almost out of frame here, right? We have something kind of odd, and I'm not sure what to make of it. It looks like there might be another critter right there. Something.
Something.
It vaguely resembles a hand moving that limb out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I see. And I've blown it up and sharpened it and done everything I could do with it to get a good look at it. But I don't know. What do you think about that? That's an interesting tidbit.
Very possible.
So do you reckon it's a human hand, or are we talking about, okay, so this is Florida, and Florida has a plethora of research facilities and zoos and private parks and all kinds of critters that people brought in over the past 100 years. Ever
Oh
since
yeah.
the railroad barons decided to do the steel tycoons and the snowbirds all moved down there and put together their own private zoos and menageries, and nobody can forget the Tiger King. So, how
Oh,
many
of course.
tigers do you reckon run around in Florida?
Oh God, yeah.
How many chimps?
God only knows. Well, I mean, look at the what anaconda. You know, it's not indigenous to the state, but yet they have been killing them. The giant iguanas.
Those
You
two.
know, the
Yes, sir.
same way. So yeah, most definitely. Well, what do they say? We've discovered less than what 5% of the wildlife so far in the world. So you know, what's to say what still hides in the bayous and the swamps and the Everglades
Yeah, no, the
and
Everglades are
stuff down
something
there.
else. The Everglades is a unique biosphere, unlike anything else, possibly in the world. Florida has some sections of its surface that are actually below sea level. And so, out in the middle of
Hmm.
the Everglades, you can be wandering around and you'll come across an area that looks like a lake as if it gets deep, but it's only 2 or 3 inches deep, but there's no grass growing there. And that's because it's below sea level and there is some type of a sump pipe, a cavern or something that allows salt water up inside of a freshwater body, creating a really salty area and then a brackish marine area. And you'll find things like glass shrimp and grass shrimp and all kinds of weird little arthropods and crabs that are not found in Florida but around Florida, right?
Hmm.
And yet you'll find a spot in the middle of the Everglades out there that's full of obvious
Oh
saltwater
yeah.
farm. And they'll be hanging out right next to an alligator, right next to a turtle, right next to a rhesus monkey, right next to an anaconda, right next to a gaboon pit viper, and that might be being hunted by a freaking tiger. You know,
Yeah.
I wonder about things like hippos and whatnot down there because I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to survive.
They wouldn't have a natural predator, so
Well, alligator
I
would
would
be
have
able
to
to
agree.
take out a young one, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, even in Africa, they have crocodiles and alligators that dwarf ours here, and
true.
the hippos thrive over there. So I haven't seen a hippo on an endangered species list just yet. Hey,
Yeah.
Christine.
Well, I got news for you. In America, there are no hippos. So if I find one, I'm eating it. Yes, sir.
I don't
I've
know.
wanted a
I don't
hippo
know
steak
why
since I
I've
found out
ever.
they existed.
I don't know why. For some reason, both of our live streams today have started tilting towards eating things that aren't normally eaten. This morning it was neighbors, and
Yeah,
now
that
it's
was me
hippos.
too. That was me too. My bad.
Yeah. Well, neighbors are still cheap. Food at the store
Yeah.
isn't.
Well, the question came up of dog or neighbor first. And I say neighbor because the dog can help me find more neighbors. The neighbor is just
That's
another mouth.
true. That is
Anyway, I'm
true.
sorry. I digress. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I got you. Yeah.
we have this creature. We have a clear photograph, one of the clearest photographs of a creature that is clearly not human. Doesn't really appear to be a chimp. Seems to be too dark to be an orangutan and too tall to
Mm-hmm.
be a bonobo. It's too small to be a gorilla and is missing some features that a monkey would have. It's too big for all that, right? So
Yep.
what is it?
It's a good question.
You know, I could see maybe an old orangutan, perhaps.
Still, the collar and the way it's
It's
walking, and
the hair around the face. Orangutans typically don't have that. Once they reach breeding age, they get the big ear flap thingies on their face, right?
yeah,
But perhaps that only shows up if they're well fed. and maybe we're dealing with an older one. One thing we can say from this picture is he does not have teeth problems. Look at that grin.
Yeah.
My man got tooths. That's not the problem.
No.
So there's no reason to think he's not eating. But what is it? Is what it comes down to.
That is a skunk ape, dude. That is a skunk ape.
That's what it comes down to. Because here's the thing: skunk ape's not described as a chimpanzee. It's not described like a gorilla. It doesn't have the description of an orangutan. If you had to make an analogy to something that we actually know exists, it would be probably the Bornean orangutan. They have more hair everywhere. But even they don't have a lot of hair on their chest right here. Army hairy.
Yeah.
He's
well,
fuzzy
you look at
all
the
over.
body structure too. I mean,
Right.
the body structure
thinking-
too. An orangutan is usually very, very thick in the chest area, and then when you get down below the rib cage, they thin out and go into those two little gangly, legs. And this thing is thick. It is built and muscular all the way from its top of its head
Right.
down to. I mean, you can see its rump. You can see down to
Also-
the thigh area.
Also, an orangutan is a extreme plant eater, an exclusive herbivore, and they develop this pot belly that is hard to hide. And homie here don't got no pot belly. If he do, he's hiding it good.
Yeah. Jenny Craig.
Weight Watchers, I don't know.
Weight Watchers.
I don't know. In Florida, it could be Flocka. You know, I don't know. But I tell you, when I look, you remember I told you that the reason my channel is named what it's named is because I saw a wild man once. And I call it the hobo in a fur coat. That's what I saw. Right there. That's as close as I've seen in a photographic proof anywhere. The only other thing that I've seen that is even remotely close is no, I don't think I want the Alex Jones one. Is this? You notice how homie don't got no hair on his face, but he seemed to have a little bit of a Fu Manchu going on.
Yeah.
That's what the dude in the swamp looked like that day. Except he was hairy and had a weird kind of reddish orange / blonde frosted. It looked like he'd been standing in the sun forever. You know what I mean? How it leaches out the ends of
KK
your hair,
Bootsy says he's wearing a fur girdle.
right? My point being, he wasn't red, and he wasn't black, and he wasn't any of those colors specifically. Had this individual not been standing exactly where he was standing in sand, I might have missed him. Just because his pelt broke up his lines so well that if he just closed his eyes, I might not have noticed.
Wow.
Might have walked right by him. But that's a trick you and me can learn. I know how to do that in the swamp. I can go off in there and get 10 feet away from you and just vanish, provided you blink.
Yeah.
So for a creature half my size or even equivalent size, what I saw was 6'4" and built like a European footballer. I mean, he got up and walked away, his knees didn't lock. He had a little short thumb. His thumbs weren't as long as mine. They didn't do this. They had a little bit of a club thumb effect going on. It made me an absolute believer in if in nothing else, to there being wild men and feral people that are completely unknown to modern society. Whether it's Bigfoot or skunk ape or anything else, I'm still open on that end of it.
Yeah.
But what I saw was not an animal in the classic sense. Had it been an animal, I might have shot it. because I was armed
Yeah.
and prepared to do so, but it looked human enough that that was murder, and I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
which would explain why no one has brought a body in, because it might be a dude in a gorilla suit.
Yeah.
So there's a question.
There,
What happens
there
if you
have been
find a dude in
many,
a
many,
gorilla suit?
many. Yeah, there have been many, many accusations made on a lot of the video and photographs that have been taken for the last couple decades
Yeah.
about people, putting on old, mangy, worn out gorilla suits and stuff like that. And, oh, how come no one's ever brought in evidence? How come no one's ever killed one, brought in the body?
Because it's murder.
Uh, because it's murder. If you just happen to
It's
shoot some dude
murder.
that's out there playing Bigfoot in a gorilla suit, dude, you're going up for a
Uh,
while.
but that was my very next question. Hypothetically speaking, you're a judge. Guy comes in front of you charged with manslaughter / murder. Hunter, who was out in the woods hunting bear, who came across a guy in a gorilla suit, shot him. Is that murder, manslaughter, or an accidental death? Or what do they call it? A death by misadventure.
Well, if I was the judge in something like that, I would have to say I would probably go with death by accidental adventure
Right.
because the dude was out there being deceptive. That's like
Yeah.
that would be almost no different than you saying, okay, these guys are going bear hunting. I'm going to go scare the hell out of them. I'm going to put on this bear suit and I'm going to go out there and come out from behind a tree on the trail and scare the hell out of them, and then they shoot you and you die.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. You knew they were out there hunting. You hunters were out there. So why are you out there fiddle farting around in a fur suit at that time? So I mean, if
All
you're
right.
close
I would
enough, you
take
can
it one
see
step.
what they're doing. You see they're armed.
I would take it one step
Yeah.
further. We would look at why homie was in the woods in the first place. The guy who did the killing. If he is a bear hunter and has been bear hunting his whole life, and he went out bear hunting and shot a guy in a gorilla suit, that is death by misadventure. But if he's old Tom that goes over here moonshining and spotlighting at night shooting deer, and he shoots a guy in a gorilla suit, that's manslaughter at the very least.
Yeah.
Right. If homie's got bear tags and he's bear hunting, you have an argument that you were bear hunting. If you don't got any bear tags, and you have no reason to be bear hunting, then that's probably not what you were doing. So that's not going to work as a defense. Now, I saw a guy, I saw Bigfoot, and I wanted to bring it back to science. I'm split on this. Obviously, they're endangered. Killing one would be a crime, but they cannot be put on the endangered species list until they've been identified by science.
Yeah.
Therefore, killing the first is not murder. Killing a second one would be either murder or, depending on whether they vote or not, I don't know. The homie I saw was a bikini wax away from voting Democrat. Let me tell you.
Oh,
Homie didn't need nothing more than like a little trim. He'd be better looking than I was. Because, I mean, he was scrapped. He looked like David Beckham. Like freaking. But when he walked away, he didn't run. He walked. He walked fast, but it was still a walk. And he never locked his knee. It stayed a little bit bent. Like he kind of walked with his, it's hard to explain. His foot come down and his ankle went forward, and then his knee bent back so that he always had a kind of lean forward gait.
yeah.
He never stood quite up straight like a person does. It was kind of like he was kind of looked like he was carrying a heavy load, but he wasn't. And I wonder if maybe he had been injured or something like that, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Hello, Stephen Sheets. Welcome to the show. He's doing better than I am, let me tell you. So this creature whatever it might be, is obviously a physical thing that was obviously photographed. Is it a person in a suit? I don't think so. Is it a misidentified creature? Okay, let's look at the creatures it could be. Let's say bear. No,
Mm-hmm.
that don't work. There's not enough face for there to be bear. Also,
Yeah.
this thing up here pushing this leaves out of the way appears to be his left hand, which would make that reach almost longer than his body,
Mm-hmm.
which has more of the ratios of an orangutan. His eyes are deeply set in his skull, and there seems to be a little bit of a brow ridge on his forehead. We can't see feet, and we can't see his right hand,
Yeah.
but we can see the curve of his elbow and the line of his forearm. And for all intents and purposes, you can't see where it ends. That thing hangs way down below his knees.
Very true.
So if this hand over here is his hand and it's his left hand, that is a 4-foot reach. Now, I'm using the palmetto bushes that they're standing in as a measurement. Those things tend to be about the same size regardless of where you find them. It's a little bigger, a little smaller, but it's a pretty good judge of size. So I'd say this thing is 5.5 feet tall, but squatting. So if he stood up, he might get 6 foot, but I doubt it. Yet his arms seem to be 3 foot long each. He's got an almost 7.5 foot reach. So, to my knowledge, there is no creature on Earth with those dimensions.
Yeah, I can't think of any. Not in the Florida area anyway.
No, I'm talking anywhere in the world, baby. I can even go back and look at extinct creatures. Things like Gigantopithecus does not have those dimensions. There are a few extinct species of gorilla that are closer, but the one thing that I think might have these dimensions that actually existed is a baboon from Africa. And it would be about right, but they have tails, I think.
Yeah.
I think they
I
have
thought they
tails.
had blue asses.
Some do. Not all, but not all baboons have tails. But I think the old ones, I think the extinct ones did. The ones I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, lovely creature, lovely specimen. This is one of the greatest pictures ever taken in the history of Bigfoot and cryptozoology.
Yeah.
And I believe it belongs right next to the Patterson film.
I can agree with that.
The facial structure on this creature is closer to that of an elderly chimpanzee, like an old chimp. Right, his face is that of a very aged chimp, because they continue growing their eyes and stuff. It definitely. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, we only recently discovered the billy ape. Are you familiar with the billy ape?
No.
Oh wow. Okay. We're going to go way off of our
That's the
Native
one that's
American
related to Billy Carter, right?
Yeah, but it's distant. Cousins or something, I'm not sure. So the billy ape is what happens when chimpanzees get across the Zambezi River. The chimps all exist south of a particular, it might be the Congo River, whatever river it is. There's a particular river, and all the chimps exist south of it. All the gorillas exist north of it. When you get off to one side or the other, it goes out of the jungle into the savannah, and there are no chimps or apes over there. They get hunted by lions and baboons and hyenas and stuff like that. Yeah. However, in the mid-'60s, people started reporting that there were something they called a billy ape that were attacking lions and killing them. Not just not just randomly attacking them, but hunting prides of lions in groups. And they said that these apes were twice the size of a chimpanzee, half the size of a gorilla. Some of them had sagittal
Oh
crests.
wow.
Some had like hornier claws than are typically on either the gorilla or the chimpanzee. And so a theory came about that this was an unknown species of either gorilla or chimp, or possibly a half breed. None of that is true. When we found the bonobo, we found a chimp species outside of the chimpanzee area. Bonobos are peaceful, pacifistic. They don't generally hunt like that. They don't get violent. They're really laid back and screw a lot. That's what they do. We got samples of them. We proved they existed. We proved that only in certain areas are they permitted to exist, and they're just eradicated by all the gorillas in other areas. So the areas that are not fit for gorillas to live, they allow the bonobos to live there. And they live there peacefully for the most part. Chimpanzees, on the other hand, are vicious, short-sighted, and angry creatures. What happened is, in the mid-70s, a breeding population of chimps, actual chimpanzees, were somehow displaced from the other side of the river and made it far enough away from the jungle that they were no longer a part of that genetic group. They are still chimpanzees, but they've acquired the ability. They've learned to do things like they research. They teach their children where the natural traps are. So if there's a sinkhole, they figured out how to get into the sinkhole, and they check it every time they come by to see if there's something in it to go eat. These chimpanzees are predators.
So they've learned to troubleshoot and solve a situation.
They got stuck in a complicated situation and came up with complicated answers. As a byproduct, they have more protein. They also eat grubs and termites. They figured out how to harvest termites. As a byproduct, they get more fat, more protein, more meat, and more lipids in their diet than an average chimp or a gorilla. So it's not a half breed between a gorilla and a chimp. It's just an exceptionally healthy chimp. They have no natural competition with gorillas, no natural competition with other chimps, and all of these chimps are their own family group. So while there's a lot of inbreeding going on, it's a big enough group that genetically it's not negative. 3,000 strong, perhaps, 5,000, something like that. These groups are broken into multiple quote-unquote tribes that travel separately, but typically all go back to the same area every few days as if they have a hometown or something. Now, these stories passed around in North Africa and all across Europe for decades before a handful of pictures started coming out of something that clearly wasn't a chimp and clearly wasn't a gorilla. Until you go and look at the genetics, you can't prove it's a chimp because it's so much bigger and so much more massive. I mean, it's not just that they're taller. They do things like they chase things on their hind legs. They will pick up like a limb or a rock or something and chase it towards one of those natural traps I was telling you about. Not so much hunting behavior as driving behavior. So I don't have a problem with there being a similar type of creature in North America. And up until 1920 or so, there was plenty of food here. The American chestnut produced so much food that people didn't used to carry food when they traveled because they could just eat chestnuts.
Yeah.
There was a small town over here called Goat Town, and it had two exports. It exported American chestnuts and goat's milk. And that was it. And when the American chestnut died out, the town died. The whole thing is still sitting over yonder in the swamp moldering.
Hmm.
The same thing, I think, would have happened to Sasquatch. The eastern Sasquatch would have received a massive hit, an enormous starvation potential. Most of its energy that it derived from these trees would have been wiped out over the course of about 60 years, 100 years. You would go from there being
Wow.
literally every fourth tree on the eastern seaboard above 150 meters, that's sea level, was an American chestnut.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 in 6 was a beech nut. And all of those are gone.
Wow.
You want to hear something really messed up?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
American chestnut is not even endangered.
Really?
It didn't kill them. If you go out into it was a chestnut blight brought in by Chinese chestnut trees that were brought in because they're a little bit hardier in lower elevations. And they brought
Mm-hmm.
them in. The chestnut blight came in with them. And it doesn't kill anything under the ground. It only kills the growing shoots. So the shoot grows up to, big around as your leg. And just before it starts making chestnuts, it dies. It gets taken out by the blight. So imagine you're
Really?
Sasquatch and you're traveling from north to south on your usual travel route. And the Native Americans haven't bothered you in the past 60 years. You ain't seen a Native American in a minute. Usually they keep these trails clear, but they're not clear anymore because nobody travels those trails anymore.
Yeah.
And then you realize that all of the food that you come through and eat is gone. It hasn't just been gathered like has happened for millennia, but it just didn't grow this year. All of the standing trees, they're dead. The roots are sending up new shoots, but they don't grow chestnuts. And the people that have moved in place of the Native Americans don't treat the forest the way the Native Americans did. They would come through
Mm-hmm.
and burn off patches. They would keep entire sections of it clear so that it was good for hunting deer. And then they'd have a different section that was really, really crabby with briars and stuff because it was good for hunting rabbits. And another section that was left, you see what I'm saying? The eastern
Yeah.
seaboard was never a wild wilderness. It was always a cultivated food forest. And
Mm-hmm.
we ruined it. You go out into the eastern woodland now and you'll find 89 to 90% oaks of various descriptions: red oaks, white oaks, water oaks, scrub oaks, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Cows don't eat that. Buffalo don't eat acorns like that. There are versions of acorns that they eat, and they're called sweet oak.
Yeah.
They're very tannin light, and yes, you can eat them. But even then, we still have to wash them, or it will upset our stomachs drastically.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so in the eastern seaboard, you have a handful of tribes. The most famous of which, I mean, not counting the northern ones, because I mean, the Algonquin honestly are largely a Canadian thing, uh, very
Mm-hmm.
far North American. But your
Yeah.
Cherokee, your Creek, your Cree, your Seminoles, your these people, right? These people all had one other myth beyond Sasquatch that was really weird. And it's one of those things that nobody's been able to really put their finger on. And that brings us hopefully to our next video. Nope, this one. Function, work. All right. Now this, I'm going to drop this link.
Activate.
Yeah, be useful, damn it.
The
This
Tsundai.
guy has one of the coolest, just general weird knowledge channels. It's Adventure, Explore, Discover. And he dresses up like Indiana Jones, and then he talks at the camera. Everybody's seen one of these guys. This one does it pretty cool. Check this dude out.
Do not underestimate the strength of little people in Cherokee Nation. They're fierce, brave, and sometimes they can be a little funny.
The Yunwi Junzi are a race of small beings that are said to live in the woods of Cherokee Nation. They're made up of 3 tribes, and depending on which one you run into and how you treat them, you may end up getting directions, getting tripped, or getting attacked.
I have some suspicions that there may have been a fourth tribe of Junzi, and the reason that they're no longer in existence. But I'll get to that story and how they were supposedly killed off at the end.
All right, I'm not going to blow all of that because Homie has some amazing content. That word is what I was looking for. The Yunwi Sunzi. These are the tiny, little furry Sasquatch peoples of the eastern seaboard. They are described as varying from redheaded to little blonde people to something that vaguely resembles Smurfs. In the Cherokee Nation, they are described almost identically from the Nahanni of the Nahanni culture. These are typically like midgets, 2-3 foot tall. Hobbit. The Hobbit is a perfect description of these creatures.
Yeah.
You know, from Flores Island. Those things are these things. When you describe them, if you write it down on paper and look at it and go, okay, what am I looking at? You put those two things side by side, you might not be able to tell them apart, except one's from Southeast Pacific and the other's from Southeast Georgia.
Yeah.
And these creatures range.
We actually just
Go ahead.
we actually discussed earlier in the week that several of your Midwestern tribes, all the way over to the eastern seaboard, all have their own legends of little people. The Miami of Indiana, that's the one that sticks out to me because there's a freshwater spring located along the Mississippi River in right in between Grant County and Wabash County in Indiana. And supposedly the little people still to this day guard that freshwater spring. You go out there hem hauling around in the forest and stuff like that, and just about anything can happen to you or your car or something. So yeah, I'm very familiar with the legends of the little people with the Native American tribes.
When you go farther north, apparently the farther north they get, the legends become more and more aggressive until you get up around Ontario, where the locals just these creatures are not aggressive. They don't have stories of them attacking or leading people astray or anything like that. In these stories, they are always only glimpsed or possibly seen as a family group doing something very wholesome. But sometimes they'll help you out. If a child is lost in the woods, they will lead them back to a village, not necessarily your village.
Yep.
And so a child may show up 12 miles away at a different village with no way of having got there and completely fine. It sounds like some of those missing 411 stories, don't it?
Mm-hmm.
Start raving
Very
madness,
much.
man. My coffee is cold. That is no good. Hold on. All right, so we're going to step
Yeah,
away
there's
from.
actually there's
Go ahead.
there's actually stories among the Miami and even down into Kentucky, which was at one point in time, Shawnee and Cherokee land, of like you said, people getting lost in the woods and little people. They would see little people and they would follow them, and they would lead them back to a human village. May not be theirs, but they would lead them back to quote unquote civilization. So yeah, I mean it all depends location and like you said, the which group you ran across if they were gonna help you or mess with you. So yeah,
And
there we
I
go.
want to stress that these are. Can I get a Dr. Pepper in my? Oh, you've already got them all. That's cool. It's fine, baby. Sorry, bud. So
You're fine.
in Europe, when you're talking about the the little people are up to shenanigans in almost every case. They're always tying your shoestrings together, stealing your other sock. They're turning your milk bad. They're taking your cookies. And if you don't leave them milk and cookies or whatever out, they come and ruin some part of something else. And
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to say, okay, well, these legends are derived from the fact that people are lazy, short sighted, and brutish. And so when this is the picture I was looking for. You see that thing? Look at that thing. This is a different imagining of the Neanderthal.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than pointing it out as being a brethren of man and making it as human as possible, he went a different route and created a carnivorous ape. One that uses spears, uses trails, maintains its environment, and actually hunts at night, explaining the huge eye sockets, a massive frontal lobe for the visual cortex. And the whole concept of it is derived directly from the fact that you only ever find Neanderthal remains in places that were previously underground. So let's take this concept of Neanderthal and apply it to North America. If they are carnivorous rather than omnivorous leaning toward carnivore, say slightly more carnivorous than a brown bear. If brown bears can exist on the eastern seaboard, I see no reason why these creatures couldn't, especially if they were smarter.
Yeah.
So why would it be impossible for a Bigfoot, which admittedly a Neanderthal is not a Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not taller than us, they're not bigger than us, none of that. But is it beyond the pale that another creature of similar type came here? We came here, and we did it long before we had that stuff, you know. Whether or not we came over a land bridge or across an ice bridge or across or used boats or whatever it was that got us here, we got here. And we got here in a tight enough group that every single tribe derived from that group has the same complex of myths and legends. If you go to the upper Northwest Territories, you'll find the plumed serpent, the thunderbird, the thunder beast, the Nahani, the little people, the Bigfoot. You'll find the big mountain snake or whatever you want to call that thing. I can't remember the name of it. Various sea monsters and stuff like that. These are ubiquitous cultural myths across the entire continent, from north to south. If you go to Patagonia, in South America, and you go talk to the natives down there, they will tell you the same story about thunderbirds and thunder beasts and white buffaloes, although down there I think they're llamas.
Yeah.
If you get the point, I mean, that is an amazing amount of similarity across a bajillion miles. That would be like going to South Africa and talking to a native who told you about Thor and his hammer.
Yeah. I'm going to step away for a second and get up and move my hip around. Please
Go ahead,
keep
mate.
going. They're here
I
to
can
see
sit here and
you,
babble
not me.
incessantly.
They see me all the time. Well, we're counting on that.
Count twice. I'm really good at it. So if you go to South Africa, you talk to the bush people in South Africa, they'll tell you all kinds of crazy legends and myths. What they won't do is tell you anything about Thor. But they'll tell you about Brekka and Braja and Brajan, and these individuals create the storms. If you go to southern Patagonia, or pick your spot in the Americas, it doesn't matter. Even if you get off the Americas a bit into the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic, you still find the same myths. So either some aspect of these myths were true, they were verifiably, repeatably true, so that generation after generation after generation witnessed it and said, hey, to their kids, be careful out there because there's a really big bird that'll snatch youngins up, fly away, and they come in on the leading edges of storms. Or they'll tell you, tell the children, you need to be real careful when going through the forest because a giant snake might come out and eat you. Now, an interesting conundrum here is the plumed serpent, because depending on how far south you get in South America, it sort of fades out of myth and legend and just becomes a giant snake. The farther north you get in South America, the more of a deity, Quetzalcoatl type, it becomes, right? And the plumed serpent occupies a space somewhere between Sin Eater and the devil himself. It's hard to analogize him to a European concept because really he's just all those things nefarious. He's bad luck and rain on your wedding day and 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. So he's bad luck is what it comes down to. But like the Thunderbird, to see a Thunderbird is good luck. That is because you lived. To witness the Thunder Beast is an epic omen. It may determine that you're actually a shaman and not a warrior. To witness and I mean, if you look at the Thunderbird myth itself, there are these birds, these condors that are ginormous. And we know for a fact that previously, at least 14,000 years ago or so, condors of immense sizes exist. They were real. Humans were here and encountered them. And I suspect we ate their eggs into extinction. And I have evidence for that. In Australia, whenever the people achieved, whenever a breeding population of humans were capable of landing on Australia, which seems to have derived from one or two landings in a limited time period of about 800 years. And those two landings were derived probably from the same location, one of the Bornean Islands over there, somewhere across, what is it, the Wallace Straits or whatever? I can't remember. Is that right? Anyway, these people came to Australia and they encountered exactly what you would expect. 1 million more monsters than they have today. And Australia is one of those places that are designed to kill humans. Because of that, they developed very specific survival strategies that eventually became part of the Dreamtime sagas, the stories of the before and the after and the now. And to talk about the dream times is very, very difficult because it doesn't involve time in the way we understand it, because you can dream walk to a time before now and have an effect on what you would perceive as your past, but is really just your extended reality. So the idea that a small group of humans showed up on the continent of Australia and literally eradicated the what's the big lizard called that was in Australia? Giant monitor lizard. Megalotherium?
Good question. Yeah, something like that.
Something like Megalotherium, I think, was a big moose, elk type critter.
If Christine's still in here, she's from Australia. Maybe she knows.
Yeah, I'm not a Yowie. About the Navajo, no, I'm not from Ohio or any of that area really. I don't. I'm east of the Mississippi and not in the Mississippi Basin at all. Most of the myths I'm familiar with are either derived through the books that you've probably already read, or are, like I said, Eastern lore. They're Cherokee, Cree, Seminole, Yamis. There are a few other tribes. One story I heard, and I heard, I've never read this anywhere. This was when when I was about 14, we went up to a place in North Georgia where there is a big valley, three mountains, and the mountains are owned by different people, and they've all more or less donated the land in the valley to a particular tribe of natives. It's not exactly a reservation, but that's how you treat it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, no idea about any of that stuff. I just showed up, was staying there for a summer because my pops wanted to go visit one of his friends, and we ended up staying in a cabin up there that happened to be right on the edge of that reservation thing. And it's not a legitimate legal reservation. It's just a batch of land that was given to a particular tribe by people,
Yeah.
not by the government. So these three families maintain the borders on that land, and you're not really permitted to go in there unless you're invited. And
Mm-hmm.
because of where our cabin was, we kind of had to go in there to get there. And so that by dint of that, we were invited. I ran into a whole drove of children up there, like between 7 and 22 or so, because it was kind of an odd group. They had very strange stories and very strange myths that I had never encountered. And one of them was really weird. They talked about all right, soon as the sun, and remember they're in a valley between three mountains, so when the sun goes
Yeah.
down, it goes down pretty early there because they're in the hole,
Mm-hmm.
right? So regardless of what time of year it is, the sun sets early. They talked about a giant spider that hid in the canopies of the trees and would snatch children, and so, and not just children, but children, small women, small men. But I thought it was really interesting that there was that definition. If you're big enough, they're not interested.
Yeah.
They take dogs, they take cats, they take skunks, they do all that stuff. Giant freaking spiders. These people believed it. They believed it enough that my ass went home before dark. I wouldn't say they convinced me, but they convinced me they believed it, and I'm not from around here. So when in Rome, you rub the blue mud in the same direction in your belly button, right?
Yep.
Y'all go home before dark. I'm carrying my ass home for dark. I don't know why you're doing it, but it seems good to me.
Yep. Good reason.
All right, we're fixing to ease into our second hour, and that's where I start drinking. How do you feel about that?
I think that's just fine.
I know, Ajot. I know. I have worked with this man for hours trying to figure out where that echo is coming from. It is somewhere in his physical gear. It is not a program. It's not anything like that. I have not been able to put a dent in it. He's been through three different sets of earphones. He's changed his mic twice. I don't know what it is. It's something with his physical gear setup. I don't know how that works. And I'll tell you one further. When I speak, I hear the echo. He doesn't hear me until the echo. He hears that echo, not me.
Yeah. I hear nothing when it comes to an echo whatsoever.
Hey, Ajot, welcome to the show,
Now
girl.
see
Hey,
that's that's really weird. Jan don't hear an echo, but Ajot hears an echo.
I hear the echo. There's about a 2-second lag on it.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, it's
Well,
just
you
me.
know,
I'm
after that deal with the with Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction a few years ago, don't forget now they have an automatic delay in any kind of over the way broadcasting. So maybe that's it. Here, hold on. Let me see here.
Don't even bother, dude.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there it was. I just did it.
Wait,
Six
do you
and a
have
half second delay.
do you have a YouTube up somewhere in there?
Um, I'm watching the live stream, but it's muted. I'm broadcasting here, but watching it down on this device down here. But both things are
Separate
muted. The only
devices.
thing there's sound on
Both
are
are
these.
muted.
Yep.
Okay. No, I've chewed through his settings like a million times. Every time I come on, I sit down and go through it and try to figure it out. And I end up just throwing my hands up saying, okay, let's do it. It's only me. I'm the only one that echoes. Your guests echo, you do not. And what's worse is you don't hear the echo, but some of your people do, and some don't. I hear the echo every time. It is the quietest echo in history. That is true. It's not hard to deal with. Lucky bastard. Mine would be over here echoing my echoes to echo the echo.
Yeah.
Hey, you got anything to drink over there, bud?
I have got my diet Fago.
Then in that case, I'm going to have to run a toast right over the top of you. Here's to you
Go
and here's
for
to
it.
me, and we never disagree. But if we do, to hell with you. Here's to me. Hiya. Arg. Rum. And it is officially a rum stream. All right, so I'll show you something else that happens. And this is what really weirds me out about this whole scene. Okay, check this out. All right, Drew. I want you to wait 10 seconds and then mute yourself on the StreamYard and then unmute yourself after 5 seconds.
Okay.
There's a reason why all these forensic reconstructions end up looking like humans, and it's got nothing to do with science. I think it's about anthropomorphism. That's our tendency to attribute human characteristics to other animals. It seems to be part of human nature. We assume that because we've got smooth...
Okay. Okay. So the echo is definitely over there, and it's between your StreamYards and your microphone somehow. It's right there. Because if you mute yourself on StreamYards, we get no echo. But anything... Oh, that's not good. We need to get that off the screen. Copyright. Dance on, folks. Not really. We're going to stick around a little longer, I think.
Well, and see that's one of the main reasons that I've been humping with the donations and stuff lately is to get some better studio headphones, things like that might alleviate the issues with the with echoes, newer microphones. Everything I have is used.
Bro, listen.
I'm just a poor dude. So
real soon, like I'm getting my hands on a mobility type van. I'm going places, and I'm going to go to everybody's fucking house that has bad sound, and I'm going to sit down and work over your gear myself. I'm just going to be like, hush, show me where it's at. Click, 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 click. There. Don't mess with it. I don't know. I have I'm about 40% deaf in my left ear and 50% in my right ear from all the guns I've shot over my life. So when things get garbled, I really get upset. Oi.
Oi vey.
All right, so my dumb ass has been out of Dr. Pepper's for 2 years with one in my refrigerator in my room the whole time. I didn't know. 'Cause I'm a moron.
So did Daughter Squatch bring that one to you, or did you find it in there?
I just opened the refrigerator over here to put my other Dr. Pepper in it and found one in it. I didn't know it was there till I opened it. That's why when I turned around and looked back, I was looking down like I was disappointed. I was like, it's unfortunate. Okay, wait, hold on. This is what I was waiting for. Check this out. All right, back it up just a hair right here. All right, check that out. This is a Neanderthal skull overlaid directly over a human skull. Look at the size of his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
When you see a modern Neanderthal reconstruction, they fill that whole area in with meaty, fatty tissue and then leave the eyeball the same size as ours. That is
Yeah.
probably not the case. The eyeball was probably 20%, 30% bigger.
Which means they had a much more enhanced vision capability than what we do. Possibly
Also,
even the ability to see in the dark.
that's what this whole video is about. And let me get the link for it. I'm just going to do the channel itself so it doesn't take anybody out of chat. So Homie is reimagining rather reinterpreting the evidence of Neanderthals, assuming one thing: they did not wear clothes. Because the evidence we
Oh, the
have for
shame.
Neanderthal clothes are actually
So they really are
derived
Floridians.
Florida Man original.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, bud. You let wife Squatch make her decisions on exactly what vehicle we end up with, and let me touch up on it a little bit. I'll go anywhere. We're on deck to get a 454 4x4 Z71 Suburban with all the bells and whistles. Cameras already installed everywhere. That's the plan, and that thing will go anywhere.
Now you just need a real nice Wi-Fi hotspot for it and a dish for the top of it. And
I got one step further. I'm going to go. So we sat down and discussed: would you rather spend a boatload of money and pay off a truck for the next 10 years or however long, or would you rather spend a boatload of money and pay off a RV for the next 10 years? And after discussing it, we decided it would either be a conversion style extended van of some sort, high roof and all that stuff, or a suburban type vehicle, because you can go find campers a dime a dozen. You can get campers every day for, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000.
yeah.
If you go buy a new one, you're going to be spending 20 at least. Oops. Get back up there. All right, so Homie's eyes are easily almost twice the size of ours. They're also set further forward in the skull. They would have a slightly better overlapping binocular vision. And it's very likely, with the elongation of the skull from front to back, that they would have a larger visual cortex, allowing them something very similar to night vision, whether they could actually see in actual dark or just very, very, very low light is debatable.
Yeah.
But remember what I said about their remains. They're almost always found in locations that were once underground. So even when we find them in an open area, buried like under a few layers of dirt, if you back up and look at the environment, that's because the whole area collapsed in on it. It was a cave once. And I don't know of any Neanderthal bones that we found outside of cave systems or directly in front of cave systems. So while a lot of people try to make the analogy that the cave paintings in France and Spain might be Neanderthal in origin, I don't agree with that. I'm not sure that the Neanderthals would care. If they were largely subterranean night hunters, that's something we would have killed out of hand. Like, that's not human.
Yeah.
What's up, Megs? I want to get her in for an interview, if at all possible.
That'd be a good interview.
That's another one of those channels I think's got legs.
Oh, yeah. Right kick in the butt, and it's going to take off running.
Oh,
like
yeah.
crazy.
No.
Oh, yeah.
you get the right couple of people involved with it, and I don't mean like actively involved collaborating. I'm talking about just like showing interest. I'm hosting Mogollon Monster tomorrow, y'all. That is a year in the making, baby.
Mogollon Monsters. You're welcome, Megs.
Oh no, thank you. No, I get a
yeah,
really weird feeling when people start trying to thank me for things that I don't believe I've done.
I'd actually like to get Megs on here some Friday night for Ghost to Ghost. You know, I think it'd be a really, really good interview.
I've been absurdly busy for the past couple of weeks, and I haven't really been doing a whole lot on my YouTube. Just mainly lurking in various live streams, talking to people, trying to get them to understand that I'm not over here trying to troll you.
Yeah.
I have no intention of making you look like a fool. If you make yourself look like a fool, I will gladly broadcast that, but I'm not going to try to make you do it.
I've kind of been the same way since I started this new job, is, you know, getting myself reacclimated, getting my legs and stuff used to it. That's why my hips tearing me up now. It's just, and if it's not my hip, it's my lower back. I spent the whole day under a heating pad today, and as soon as I came in here and sat down, it nailed me in my hip again. So, you know, I just uploaded my first video today, with the exception of the investigation we did on Wednesday. I did my first upload my first video since my friend's been here, and he's been here a week and a half, and I'm not a month behind or a month ahead anymore like I was.
Right.
So,
that shit goes away quickly.
Oh yeah.
I used to have a policy. Every day I would get up and I would go hunting until I found 6 shorts. I could make 6 shorts out of whatever I found. I would upload all 6 of them every day. Right. And I would schedule them to release one a day and try to stay at least a month or 2 ahead on the shorts. But man, that is you should really look into using your remix button on your phone, bro. It is the easiest way to do that. Go to your own content. Like, say you remember some particular bit, or somebody recalls something. It's like, hey, you remember when y'all were blah, 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 and he said that really cool thing. Get a timestamp. Go hunt that down. Use your phone, hit the remix button, take the 40 whatever seconds, and just make it a short. You can write on it. You can do effects to it and stuff with your phone. It's pretty cool. I prefer to use the remix button on other people's stuff there. Like Ajot or you, if I find the right thing. But the thing is, it has to smack on my head right. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
With truth be told, he's always going into police departments and filming, and cops don't like that.
Yeah.
So you go get a cop make a fool of himself. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Megs. Listen. First of all, I want to say this, and I'm sorry. Shut up, Meg. Second of all, that's a Family Guy. That's a Family Guy reference. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person.
Hey, Myers, good to see you.
But no, I do a after dark thing after every show, every Sasquatch shows I do, where previous guests and potential guests are brought up and allowed to ask whatever questions they want about YouTube, terms of service, StreamYard, anything else you could possibly think of. If I don't know the answer, probably one of my previous guests have encountered that problem or whatever. OBS. I'm a bit of an OBS wizard. Not much, but a little bit. That's how I'm doing all of this. Wrong button. Nope, not that one either. Not that one either. Not that one either. I got a lot going on. This one. That's how I do this.
It's one of those damn buttons.
It's one of the windows, man. There's like 90. But this thing, this is one of my favorite things to do, especially when people start getting boring. I'll stop. I'm sorry. But yeah, what do you think Neanderthal for a Sasquatch analog?
I don't know. You know, seeing the skull comparison size. You know, paleontologists always said that Neanderthal was about the same size as modern
Myers,
humans,
welcome to the show, bud.
but you know, showing the
No,
skull
they're not.
comparison and everything,
No, they're
it's
not.
just
They're
yeah,
27% larger on average. They
yeah,
actually have a larger brain capacity than we do, and yet we're more conservative in their tool use. So let me give you an analogy here. direct
yeah.
direct comparison. From let's see if I can remember this right. From the Acheulean through to the Moostrian lithic technology, the Neanderthals stopped at late Acheulean. They developed better hand axes. They developed more efficiently made hand axes, but they did not improve the actual design of the hand axe.
Hmm.
If you looked at a hand axe from 2.3 million years ago and one 40,000 years ago, ostensibly made by Neanderthal, you would be hard pressed to point out the differences. It would take an expert in Acheulean technology to look at it and go, oh, that's 40,000 years ago. That one's 2 million years ago. And how can you tell? Well, you
Yeah.
see how fine the flaking is on the edge, and the method of napping was improved, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Humans, on the other hand, we also spent a period of time in the Acheulean lithic tech, but we went from Acheulean to flake tech to Moostrian, which is a much more broad-based use of flint cores.
Mm-hmm.
Acheulean tech would get a flint core, and they would make a number of scrapers and a hand axe. Moostrian tech would take that same flint core and make 200 useful implements from it, and no hand axe. Or if they did, it would be a very small hand axe.
Yeah.
It was a much more efficient use of a flint core than the Neanderthals could do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
We've gotten way off base over here, haven't we? Is that okay?
Yes. I do too, Jay, and that's why I had to have him on tonight.
I actually love these shows. I love being a guest on someone else's channel, especially when it's about things that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know
can
you do, and that's why I got a hold of you. Just like, dude, I've sent out 3 different emails for guests. Apparently, they're all off doing investigations, and I was able to get one squared away for next week. Of course, you guys, Paranormal Search, Garan and Jamie will be our guests next Friday night. But they are away right now in the Iowa area. I believe last night they done the Villisca Axe murder house.
Ooh.
So they've been busy traveling around. So we managed to get something squared away for next week, but not this week. And it's like, man, I need a good guest. Oh, Squatch.
Yep.
He never fails.
Given a choice between managing my own stream and coming on someone else's and being the sounding board, I'll take the guest spot any chance I get. Mainly because
we all appreciate that.
I don't know if AJot's still in chat, but she could tell you that I get ridiculously nervous before I go live. But if I'm on your channel, it doesn't bother me. I don't know why.
And you know it's really funny. We may do 100 interviews, but whenever I bring somebody new on, I get the same way.
Right?
And I keep getting the pep talk from my wife. You've never had a bad interview. You've always had great guests. You've always been interactive with them. You know, they've always said, you know, if you ever want me to come back, I'm more than happy to. But yet you're always a nervous wreck before you do an interview.
Well, I'll tell you one other thing I don't do. Before I do my own show, I will not drink at all. I will be stone cold sober for 24 hours before. I can't do it. If I'm a little tipsy or even a little hungover when it comes time to go live, I'll skip it. I will convince myself it is not worth it. Call a redhead instead, right?
Yeah, exactly. Call a redhead instead.
Speaking of which,
all right, so let's get on with this Neanderthal thing, man, and these Native American legends.
Right.
Much like Myers said, "Ooh, Sasquatch is so knowledgeable." And he is, because you know I look into a lot of the legends and the stories and stuff of the Native Americans, but when it comes down to, you know, the folklore and the deep legends and the myths and everything, I bow to Mr. Squatch, because he has a lot more knowledge about that stuff than I do.
I got a joke, and it's more joke than anything else, but it's not untrue. I always say, people ask me, where did you go to school? Where were you educated? And I'm like, library. I found a library card and made it work for me.
There you go.
Figured out the Dewey Decimal System very early.
Yeah. But, you know, doing what we do, Dewey Decimal cards usually have, card indexes have a way of shooting out of the boxes at us. And so, yeah,
when I was growing up, I was always hyper interested in anything woodsy and anything local or anything that could survive locally. And I had an encounter with an emu in Georgia. and it forced me to realize that just because let me explain. I'm sitting in a Georgia tree stand waiting for a deer when a group of turkeys walk out with an emu. And for 5 minutes, I stared at that emu and could not make it a thing. My brain could not make it an emu because it never considered.
Do you realize if those things mated the size of those drumsticks on Thanksgiving?
Well, here's the funny thing. I was out there hunting deer, and it is illegal to hunt turkey. I'm talking $10,000 fine and a felony.
Wow.
If you're hunting turkey out of season. And my pops looked at me. He said, "You saw an emu?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why didn't you shoot it?" I said, "Do you want to convince the game warden that I missed an emu? If I don't kill that emu in one shot, I'm going to jail."
Oh, God.
Think about it. Can you imagine sitting there in court telling the judge, "I swear to God, Your Honor, there was an emu, and I shot at the emu, and I did not shoot a turkey"?
I would have taken a picture. I would have pulled out my phone and snapped a picture before I shot it, because nobody's going to believe you didn't go to some petting zoo and shoot an emu.
Right? I mean, you see so many ways that could have gone wrong, and I was directly in, like, when I was younger, we had our local game warden lived like across the creek from where we were. So like none of that shit, man.
You want to shoot turkey, you need to come to Michigan.
No, if you want to shoot turkey, just wait for season's
and deer. Here they'll pose for you.
Homie say you
You
want to
walk
ride a
out
New
looking for,
Madrid.
yeah, exactly. You walk out here turkey hunting. Those little suckers will.
Hey Justin, how you doing, bud? I
Justin.
when I encountered that emu, it completely changed my view of the world. Because previous to that, I had seen a large boa constrictor in a Georgia swamp with my mother, and no one believed us.
The boa
I mean,
constrictor was with your mother.
like a ball python or something like that. We were walking down a little wooded road, miles and miles away from anything, like an old logging road,
Mm-hmm.
and I came across a snake that was easily as big around as my thigh is now and disappeared into the grass to the right and left of the road. And we stood there and watched it cross the road for a minute and decided we didn't want to be here anymore. And then turned around and went home.
I don't blame you.
Because if you
But
could
yeah,
stand
I
there and
mean,
watch a snake crawl for like a minute and a half, that is a really big snake.
we talked about this a little bit ago. These invasive species that the anacondas in the swamps and the Everglades and stuff. Those giant iguanas. Things that don't naturally belong in Florida or Georgia
Giant
that
African
people are
land
encountering.
snails. Have you seen the land snails, man?
No.
They're as big as chickens, dude. They're fucking enormous. And in Florida, they don't really have a direct natural predator. I mean, alligators eat them, catfish try to and die. Like snakes really ain't got nothing for them. There's a few. Uh, there's a handful of birds who have figured out how to carry them up and drop them on a rock and eat them. But for the most part, they're just breeding completely unchecked. It's like lionfish breeding completely unchecked.
Wow.
But I'm a little farther. I'm a little farther north than all that. Like I wouldn't really expect even a large anaconda to survive the winter up here, typically. But like you said, a person's pet that has escaped and survived a few years here, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty to eat. That is not a concern.
Yep. Oh, we had an alligator in Indiana.
You
Somebody
go,
went to
girl.
Florida and caught a baby, brought it up here and
It's,
put it in a tank. Then they moved it to a bathtub.
then a
Then they
swimming
moved it to
pool,
a
and then they let it
sauna.
go.
Yeah, they let it go, and it died of old age. But I guess I never realized that alligators hibernate.
Eh, they don't if it
They,
stays warm enough.
yeah, see here, this was central Indiana.
Yeah,
So I mean, the lake froze in the wintertime and stuff like that. Every summer for God 10 years, that thing people were reporting seeing that thing, and then finally, no one ever saw it again.
I would call that a death of attrition, not old age. I'm
Probably.
unsure how long alligators live. Yeah, no, iguanas have become a major issue in Florida. A major issue because anytime there's a cold snap, they fall and kill people.
Yeah,
But worse than coconuts.
big too.
But yeah, Megs, pop in one day
Megs,
on
it's
after dark, and after the after dark, you we'll cover all of the live streaming stuff you want to cover, anything at all.
I seen a story a few years ago on the alligators in the sewers, and they actually had people go down in the sewers and try to bait alligators.
They found big
And
rats.
yeah, they found huge rats, but there was no alligators found. Now, whether they just didn't take the bait or what the deal was, but yeah, they said
The
that
huge
in there,
rats
in
were better baits.
oh my God, rats as big as frickin' wallabies down there, man.
Dude, do you remember
Rats as
that
big
you
as
could
small
lock down?
dogs.
Nobody was going into Times Square. Nobody was using the subway. Nobody was out in the streets. Nobody was dropping food. Nobody was touring. Nobody was doing that stuff. The rats went insane. They became so hungry that they started like raiding people's kitchens and bathrooms. They would like climb in by the hundreds through the toilets in random freaking places where they could. Wow. I got another weird out of place critter. In Savannah, next to Savannah Plant 2, the nuclear power plant over there, there's a small population of crocodiles that have taken up residence in the effluent from the plant because it's a good 8 degrees warmer than the surrounding water.
Wow.
Another one. Hold on. What is it? Where's it at? There is a caiman. Hold on. There's a caiman population, I believe, just south of St. Augustine, Florida, that is a byproduct of a group of caiman that were brought to a herpetarium or something like that, a reptile house. And during Hurricane Andrew, it leveled several of the exhibits, and 2 or 3 dozen caiman escaped. But they didn't really cause a problem. They moved out to a particular grove, over a particular cove, and just set up shop, and they lived there. And as far as we can tell, they're really not becoming an issue. I mean, we already have alligators and crocodiles, so caiman aren't that big of a deal.
Wow. The dreaded killer rats. You know,
Dude.
Eggs, you say that, it reminds me of an old, it was either late 60s or early 70s movie called Attack of the Killer Shrews. Now, if you know what a shrew is, a shrew is about that big. I mean, they're about the size of a mole, maybe a little bigger. But for this movie, they had dogs dressed up with big rat ears and long skin tails and fake fur all over them, and these things ran all over the place.
It was a freaking terrier, wasn't it? It was some kind of
they had actually dogs. They had like German shepherds and collies and all Doberman pinschers
there was
and all
this
kinds
one
of stuff.
particular rat. There was this one particular that was, or shrew. There was this one particular killer shrew that was especially aggressive in all the scenes, and it was a Spuds McKenzie type dog with like fake whiskers and paint on it. It was horrible.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was probably one of the, I wouldn't even classify that as a B movie. That was more like an E, F, or G. I mean, it was seriously a bad film. But for the time period, sitting up late at night, watching this thing by yourself, it scared the bejesus out of you. Here's these things tearing people up and breaking in their houses and jumping up on them outside. It's like, holy hell. And then I realized a shrew is nothing but a mole, and it's like, okay, killer or not,
no, sir. Yeah, no, they're tiny. But listen. Pound for pound, shrews are the most vicious creature on earth. These things kill creatures 8 times their size. They will take out a freaking small dog. They will kill like echidnas. They'll wipe out anything. Pound for pound, they'll go at it. The only thing that kills more stuff is cats. A shrew can kill a snake that came there to eat the shrew. So, yep. I mean, if it weighed 40 pounds, it'd take over the world. I mean, I don't know what you do with it. It's like a chihuahua. Can you imagine a 110-pound chihuahua?
Oh, my God. Killer Shrew was a G movie. Oh, my God. Okay, back to the subject at hand.
Super Predator Neanderthals. Let's let this man go at it. It's a 15-minute video. We're going to go at it in about 10-minute lifts or 8-minute lifts or so. We're going to break it into 3 parts.
Well, that's good because we got about 25 minutes left. So
Yeah, it should work out pretty well. I've been kind of dragging it on, waiting for the right time. I'm
the
getting
rare
nervous.
mastiffs of Chihuahua.
right, exactly. Terrifying. That's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard of. What happens if you breed a Mastiff and a Chihuahua? Okay, well, you end up with a normal sized dog. Because my Mastiff is massive. Unmute it. I'm going to let this guy go. I think we lost Drew for a minute. Maybe he'll be back. But we'll let it play.
This is the current accepted view of what Neanderthals look like. A bit hairier than us, and with a larger nose and thicker brow ridges. But apart from that, they're unquestionably human. In fact, it's been said that if you gave a Neanderthal a shave, a haircut, and dressed him up in a nice suit, he could easily attend Harvard, although he'd need rich parents. There's a couple of things wrong with this picture. First, it's not based on any sound archaeological evidence. That's because soft tissue features like skin, hair, colour, and eyeballs are not preserved in the fossil record. The other reason is that after studying Neanderthals for 10 years, I'm convinced they look nothing like this at all. I'm Danny Vendramini, author of Them and Us, How Neanderthal Predation Created Modern Humans. In this video, I'm going to draw on the latest archaeological, genetic, and forensic evidence to challenge all your assumptions about what Neanderthals looked like. The reason why all these forensic reconstructions end up looking like humans, and it's got nothing to do with science. I think it's about anthropomorphism. That's our tendency to attribute human characteristics to other animals. It seems to be part of human nature. We assume that because we've got smooth skin, protruding noses, clear eye whites, and full lips, then Neanderthals did too. And just because we lost our body hair, we assume they did as well. You can see examples of this anthropomorphic bias in television documentaries and in museum reconstructions around the world. The men are sometimes shown as quite handsome, and often they're even clean shaven. The children are nearly always quite cute, and some of them amazingly even wear diapers. Females occasionally sport trendy tattoos, and they always have breasts, even though not one of the species of primate has permanently protuberant breasts. So you're just left with the impression that we're seriously projecting our own tastes and values onto Neanderthals. Quite apart from the anthropomorphic problem, there's also a fundamental flaw in the technique used to reconstruct Neanderthal faces from their skulls. Now this for
All right. So the method by which we use to create Neanderthal skulls and make their faces for the soft tissue is exactly the same as used to recreate a human's facial structure from bone. So they come in, they lay over these specific measurements on the face, they put clay in to fill the gaps, and then they put in some eyes. The problem is the eyes they use are exactly the same size as humans. The eyelids are made heavier and thicker and deeper, and they lay them farther out in the skull. A human with their eyeballs this far out would look like one of those weird bug-eyed geeks from the circus. You get what I'm saying? So the approach, if you took a gorilla skull and you used the same method to recreate a gorilla skull, you would come up with something that looks relatively human, because you would add more to the nose, you would thin out the lips, you would extend the chin of hair with maybe a nice little cleft in it, you know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is the basis of the reconstruction is flawed.
The process works fine on humans, but that's because we know the shape and position of our noses, ears, and lips. We know the thickness and texture of our skin, and we know the shape and size of our eyeballs. These soft tissue features are unique to humans. You would never use them to reconstruct the face of a chimpanzee or gorilla. And yet, scientists always use human facial characteristics and dimensions to reconstruct Neanderthal faces. So it's inevitable that you end up with something that looks like a human. It's spurious science. Television documentaries often use actors to portray Neanderthals. This involves hours and hours of meticulous makeup, which the producers assure us is 100% anatomically accurate. But it's not. And one reason is that Neanderthal eyes were in a different position in their skulls compared to humans. They were higher up, about where our foreheads are.
They were higher up and deeper set. This is important, especially when talking Neanderthal, Heidelbergensis, Cro-Magnon had square eye sockets with heavily protuberant eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Neanderthals had a feature that was shared by Cro-Magnon, a apis-shaped bone attachment for muscles. Humans have an oval-shaped bone attachment. Anywhere a muscle attaches to the bone, there's a scar on the bone that stays long after death, even into it's largely how we go about reproducing dinosaurs and extinct animals and stuff, is we go and look at the size of the muscle attachment and determine from that the size of the muscle. It's relatively scientific, but that breaks down when the muscle attachment is different in Neanderthals and in Cro-Magnons, which you can make the argument that Cro-Magnons are archaic humans and not modern humans. It changes the density of the structure of the muscle enormously, because an apis-shaped attachment has 30% more attachment to the bone, which means it would take 50% more force to remove it from the bone. So these creatures would be capable of picking up like Andre the Giant, man. Like, we're talking about a heavy-duty muscle builder, only they wouldn't look it. They would just look like a normal person for the most part physically, maybe a little beefy. But then they could reach over and grab a tree and just twist it and squeeze water out of it. Massive strength. We can't even measure the level of strength because we compare them to humans. If you compare that to gorillas, who also have an oval shape attachment, a gorilla is immensely stronger than a human. A chimpanzee is immensely stronger than a human. An orangutan will just rip a human apart. Imagine what a Neanderthal could do, or a Cro-Magnon.
Yeah. Sarah, on the left, that is Neanderthal, and on the right is human.
Yeah, the one with the big wide eyes and high up and that low set forehead is a Neanderthal. The one with the square eye sockets is a Cro-Magnon. The only thing these two species share, other than the general, and I mean very general, shape of the head, is the shapes of their muscle attachments, the density of their muscles. There's some theories in play currently that had to do with like a different type of muscle, like more akin to that of like dogs and cats, like fast twitch muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the human type of slow controlled thing that we use for speech. So the theory goes like this. If they had fast twitch muscles like an animal, then their speech would have been much, much higher pitched. They would have sounded like birds and probably spoken in a click language. Think about it. Where did the Bushmen learn a click language from? They shared the space with Neanderthals for 200,000 years.
Yeah.
And judging by the size of their orbits or eye sockets, their eyes were also...
Look at that. That's not even a relative. He's done one thing here that I don't appreciate. Notice over to the right side, that's not the teeth at the bottom. That's the upper roots of the teeth.
Yeah.
The Neanderthal face was much, much longer. The teeth were set much deeper into the jaw and extended much farther into the mouth, right? So they were much more firmly set than a human's teeth. They could do things with their teeth that would have ripped our teeth out. So they might have had the ability to do things like, I don't know, to literally chew up and eat leather. You try it. See how it goes for you.
Yeah.
Considerably larger as well. So if George Clooney ever had to play a Neanderthal, he'd need to have a serious facelift. And he'd need larger eyes as well. When you actually look at the hard evidence, you soon see that Neanderthal skulls and human skulls were fundamentally different. This is a Neanderthal skull. It's got a protruding face, large eye sockets, and very prominent brow ridges. Compared to a human skull, quite different.
In fact, his eyeballs end up landing approximately where our pituitary gland is. I mean, they're up here, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they're also down here because their eyes are that much bigger. Homie, if you had, all right, let's hypothetically say it was a female and blonde and wearing a Sailor Moon outfit, it would look like a Japanime character. Huge eyeballs. Is that not a night predator?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There's another reason why Neanderthals don't look like humans, and that's to do with the environment. Basically, we know from Darwin that it's the environment that largely determines what an animal behaves like and looks like. In the case of Neanderthals and humans, they evolved on completely separate continents. Humans evolved in the temperate, warm, fertile savannas of Africa.
Disagree. I think humans evolved on the island off the coast of Africa and then spread to Africa after the fact. The main concern as far as evolution is the availability of protein. And I think strand walking, beach combing would give you that level of protein without involving yourself in large predators.
Yeah. Yeah. But, tonight's all about Native American legends and myths. And, don't forget that, paleontologists have tried to say that, human beings crossed the land bridge, what, 10,000, 20,000, 25,000 years ago. But yet they're finding human... Yeah, well, they're finding human-made tools and things that are carbon dated at 100,000, 200,000 years, which tends to make me believe that a lot of the Native American creation stories are true and that they have always been there, but maybe the first Europeans crossed that land bridge at that time.
What is the site in Alaska currently that has, it's the Mastodon killing ground, and it involves a whole bunch of lithium tools just laying around?
Yeah.
There's one school of thought that says this is an accidental association of bones and fragments. And another school of thought says, no, this looks exactly like Olduvai Gorge.
Yep.
There's no technical difference in the actual arrangement and strata of involvement, that it appears to be not necessarily a mastodon or mammoth kill, but a butcher site.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to go looking.
I don't
We're going
either.
to listen to this while I look.
Oh. Okay.
Neanderthals evolved in the frozen glacial wastelands of Ice Age Europe. In fact, the two species, when they met again, had been apart for over 500,000 years. It's inconceivable from a Darwinian perspective that Neanderthals and humans would still resemble each other after 500,000 years. All this suggests to me that Neanderthals did not look like humans. Which raises an interesting question. What did they look like? Actually, once you get rid of all the anthropomorphic bias and the inherent flaws in the reconstruction technology, answering this question is not particularly difficult. And that's because, ultimately, Neanderthals were members of the order of primates. They were primates, and as such you would expect them to maintain the appearance of primates. The fact that humans no longer look like their primate ancestors is, I believe, due to completely unique ecological and environmental circumstances, which I describe in my book. These circumstances certainly didn't apply to Neanderthals. So in light of that, you would expect them to maintain the appearance of a tall bipedal primate. Once you acknowledge that Neanderthals were primates, you start to see similarities between them and other primates. For example, when I compared the profile of a Neanderthal with a chimpanzee, they seem to fit amazingly well. For my book, Them and Us, I commissioned one of the world's best digital sculptors to create a completely new forensic reconstruction based on my theories. We began by scanning the skull of a French Neanderthal. Then, over several months and hundreds of emails and phone calls between Spain and Australia, a creature gradually emerged. Now, saying that Neanderthals look like modern primates is an interesting clue, but it only goes so far. That's because modern primates come in all shapes and sizes. And there's a good reason for that. They've simply adapted to very specific regional, ecological, and environmental circumstances. And we would expect the same of Neanderthals. So to create a more nuanced picture of Neanderthal physiology, we need to understand the specifics of their environment. And we know a great deal about that. It was Ice Age Europe, a frozen glacial wasteland, described as the most inhospitable environment ever occupied by hominids. This was the environment that shaped every aspect of their physiology and behavior. Take the issue of body hair, for example. Were Neanderthals hairless like us, or did they have body hair like all the other primates? But if you look at the animals that lived in Ice Age Europe at the same time as Neanderthals, you see that they all had thick, dense coats of body hair. The mammoth, the woolly rhino, Eurasian cave lion, the cave bear, all had thick fur coats. And that makes sense as an ecological adaptation to the climate. So it makes sense that Neanderthals did too. In Africa, where...
All right, as far as the mammoth locality, New Mexico mammoth locality is concerned, the evidence that is there seems to depict a group of proto-humans, because 37,000 years ago means it could have been any number of humanoid types. At that point in time, we're right on the edge of the 40,000 year issue with Denisovans and Neanderthals and Heidelbergensis, and I mean, even the Flores Hobbit were still alive all at this point in time. So we're talking about so far pre-human that if these creatures made it to North America, whatever they might have been, and they were involved in not necessarily the killing of these mammoths, but the butchering of the corpses of these mammoths, then that puts a breeding population of something other than us here before we got here. Bigfoot. Whether it's a hobbit, a Heidelbergensis, a Homo erectus, whatever it might have been, it gives a gap for an actual humanoid species, a bipedal ape, if you will, to be wandering around in North America without any record of having been here. And
Yeah.
when you add in the fact that most of our volcanoes are on the West Coast, and any major eruptions that take place would completely subsume any previous evidence. In fact, our Clovis evidence all comes from previous to particular eruptive states. One of the oldest is a 14,000-year-old point found on the downhill side, on the eastern side of Mount St. Helens. Like it's a good 40 miles away, but it's literally below a known eruptive plateau, if you get what I'm saying. What's it called?
Yeah.
An eruption barrier, whatever, fucking words.
I believe so. Yeah. Damn English.
Damn English. I would do the Samuel L. Jackson line, but I don't like dropping F-bombs on other people's channels.
Yeah.
Humans evolved. There was a wide range of prey species that could be hunted. There was also an endless variety of plants, fruits, berries, nuts, fungi, and even shellfish. By comparison, in Ice Age Europe, where Neanderthals evolved, there were only about 5 or 6 edible plants. And those that did grow there were of such low nutritional value, they weren't worth the time and effort to harvest. This, I believe, forced Neanderthals to abandon their ancestral omnivore eat-anything diet that they acquired from Africa and adopt an exclusive carnivorous diet. In other words, they stopped being hunter-gatherers and became exclusive hunters.
All right. I'm sorry. Anybody who has not seen The Quest of Fire, you desperately need to watch that movie. You can talk through it. You can do whatever you want through it. You can sit on your phone through it, but watch the movie because there's virtually no dialogue. There's no English. There is absolutely no conversation. And there's maybe 2.5 minutes of subtitles throughout the entire 2-hour movie. It's a great film. And you get to see Cheech and Chong. What's Chong's daughter's name? Tree Chong. If I remember right.
So I don't remember her name.
She married a Belafonte, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she's in the movie, but she is black and white faced. So don't get offended. Radon Chong. That's it. Yeah, exactly. Radon is in that movie, if I'm not mistaken. And she is fully white faced through the whole movie. So y'all go SJW yourselves to your heart's delight on that one. Y'all have fun.
But this is where it gets interesting. The prey they were forced to hunt included some of the fiercest, largest, and certainly most dangerous animals on Earth. These animals raised the bar and forced Neanderthals to become adept hunters. My contention is that this transformed them over 500,000 years into the apex predator of Europe.
Imagine it's 30,000 years ago. You've just broken across the northern steppe of Russia. You've gotten into Europe and you encountered this thing in the middle of the night with a stick with your name on it. It comes out of a cave that you were thinking about sleeping in the night. Or worse yet, you were sleeping in it. It came from deeper in the cave, coming out in the hunt, and found its food sleeping in its freaking living room. Terrifying.
Yeah, I believe the phrase "pissing down your leg" might be an understatement.
Absolutely, dude. I would lose my shit and leave. Like, I'm sorry, all of you folks are completely lost. I'm not going back for you. You're on your own. That thing comes out of the cave.
Just remember, you don't have to be faster than the thing chasing you. Just faster than the slowest guy in your expedition.
Damn right. That's why you always take a guy with a limp.
Exactly.
My theory that Neanderthals were
Wait, I'm the guy with the limp.
new.
But yeah, you're the guy with the limp. You want to go camping? Listen, so this creature looks like Bigfoot. If you take away all the human making features of it, all the humanizing things, and take it to a primate status, it looks like Bigfoot. It walks like Bigfoot. It acts like Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So the only issue is it's not 12 foot tall. So are people exaggerating their size? The Patterson film says no.
Yeah.
So what do you make of it, man? I mean,
You know how I end these things. It's just one more mystery that history left behind.
that's right. You ready to end it? Or you want to finish this?
Yeah, we can finish it.
Okay, it's like another 5 minutes or so.
Molecular analysis of their teeth enamel. This reveals that the Neanderthal diet consisted of 99% meat. In fact, that's all they ate. And there's only one way to get that much fresh meat, and that's by hunting. It also seems that they didn't care where the meat came from. That's because we now know that Neanderthals were cannibals. The first evidence of this actually surfaced in 1906. Since then, literally hundreds of bones have been discovered right across Europe, bearing the unmistakable cut marks of cannibalism. My predator theory also explains why Neanderthals were so much stronger than humans. Their muscles were so large, they had to have extra thick bones to take the strain. It's been estimated that Neanderthals were 6 times stronger than humans. Even a Neanderthal child could toss a human adult around like a rag doll. It also explains their extraordinary intelligence. Neanderthals were unquestionably the smartest animal in Europe at the time. They mastered fire making, they constructed windbreaks, they made tools and weapons, including razor-sharp thrusting spears. And like other social predators, they hunted in packs and used sophisticated ambush tactics to maximize capture rates. But there's one last adaptation that helped transform Neanderthals into such a formidable killing machine: the dark. The vast majority of land-based predators hunt at night because it's easier to catch.
Hey, big fella. Sun is getting low. You have a good one, Mags. It's good to see you. I appreciate you coming in.
Prey when they're resting or asleep. This theory predicts that Neanderthals acquired larger night vision eyes and pupils to see in the dark. These kinds of eyes reflect light extremely efficiently. It would explain why Neanderthals had such enormous eye sockets. If you think my Neanderthal reconstruction pictures are a bit scary, or the idea of camping alone at night out here in the forest is a bit disconcerting, there's a good reason for that, and it goes to the heart of my Neanderthal predation theory. That's because about 100,000 years ago, a group of European Neanderthals migrated into the Middle East, into an area currently occupied by Israel, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. Now, living there at the time was a group of ancestral humans. These were timid, Stone Age.
Much love, Meg. You have a great evening.
Yeah, take care, Mags. We'll catch you later.
Hunting them. But not just for food. I believe that Neanderthal males also began hunting human females for sex. Now, this horrific period of sexual and cannibalistic predation went on for in excess of 50,000 years. It's this and only this scenario that explains why the 2010 draft sequence of the Neanderthal genome found categorically that Neanderthals had interbred with humans. For our ancestors, being hunted by the most ferocious killing machine on Earth was so traumatic, so transformative, that even today we still harbour the genetic legacy of that horrific period of predation. Since the beginning of humanity, these fiendish creatures have haunted the human imagination. They are the stuff of nightmares. They are the monsters, vampires, and werewolves of myth, movies, and folklore. My research indicates that the only humans to survive were those born with modern human adaptation. Things like high intelligence, creativity, language, and a great...
That's not my bad
This
sound.
allows
That's
them
their
to
bad
turn the
sound.
tables on the Neanderthals.
I
For
figured.
20,000 years, they hunted them to extinction. So the basic premise of my book is that everything we are today, everything that defines us as humans, is the result of that extraordinary 70,000-year conflict between them and us. It's what made us human. I'm Danny Benramini. Thanks for watching. Check out the website.
I'm gonna mute this and let it play until the little thing comes up to tell you where they're at. There, that one. The mandus.org. All right. So we've gone a little over time. I apologize. That's entirely my fault.
No, you're good.
And I got this thing on my eye. I got bit by a spider. So, all right. What do you think about Neanderthal for a subterranean or possibly nocturnal hunter as Bigfoot? Slightly exaggerated features, and people who see them are so shook by them, like I was when I saw the thing that I saw, that describing it is difficult.
Well, I really kind of tilt towards the... I don't know as much about the subterranean thing. Maybe they did live in caves and stuff like that, but or as they refer to the Bigfoot dwellings now, nests.
How do Bigfoot travel from location to location without being spotted? We spot day hikers every day. We know where most of them are most of the time. So how could Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Nahani move from one location to another without being seen like cougars or jaguar or whatnot? There's a handful of jaguars still in the Adirondacks.
Yeah, we have mountain lions right here in Michigan. They've been sighted right here in our area.
Right.
That's why I hate going outside at night, because the last one was sighted 8 years ago, not 2 miles from here.
I had this one event take place in about 3 weeks. The swamp that I lived on was directly adjacent to a paper plantation. Do you know what that means?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay, so the
We
paper
don't have very
companies,
many plantations in Michigan, so.
It's not really that nobody lives there, nobody works there. There's no slaves. It's nothing like that. It has to do with the fact that the property lines are derived from pre-Civil War plantation lines. The people who were divested of their land had their land sold to the paper companies for 101 years.
Okay.
I don't know why, but all of this started coming up for grabs like in the past 10 years or so. When that started happening, they started clear cutting all of those locations, and they clear cut 20% of it before they clear cut the area behind my house. Now, to be clear, my home where I grew up was 285 acres of untouched virgin wilderness. I cannot describe it because you've never seen it. When I say there were trees out there that 20 of us could hold hands and only reach a little ways around, you won't understand what I mean because you think redwoods, but I'm talking about cypress. They're not that tall. They're just really freaking big. Yeah. So they clear cut all of that, and then they clear cut some stuff up behind the house. And then for about a year and a half, we had the weirdest encounters. I saw my first black bear, my first brown bear, an entire family of gray fox. They don't live here, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I seen them. They were obviously gray fox, and they were there. I don't know why. That was also during the same time period where I saw the emu and the same time period where I saw the big snake. So all of this ties together. But during those 2 years, me and several of my neighbors, my pops never saw it and he said we were lying, but I saw a ginormous cougar, extremely pale. Now, when I first described it, I said white. But since then, I've seen a whole bunch of different color morphs of cougar, and I've seen some that were actually lighter than the one I actually saw. So I don't call it white anymore. I say a very light colored cougar. Here's the weird part. I saw it. 3 weeks later, my neighbor saw it. About 2 days after that, my other neighbor came across. He stepped out the back door to pee, and that thing was sitting at he had dumped some scraps right outside the door, and he came out to pee, and he almost peed on it. And he almost crapped himself at the same time. So, the thing is when you see one of these creatures, your first instinct is not to break out a camera and take a picture of it, but to shut the door and turn off the light and get the dogs in.
Yeah, exactly.
You call everyone and make sure the children are inside, and then you tell them what you saw, and they don't believe you. So a couple of years now, that was in 2007, 2006, and I was going through various, because I research all kinds of crap all the time, just endlessly, but I have nothing better to do with my time. So I was researching different big cat hunters in the Southeast because I specialize in the Southeast, and I came across this guy. I can't remember the dude's name off the top of my head. I'll get it and email you the name. But he talks about this particular cat that he got from my county that was 40 pounds heavier than your average cougar and many shades lighter. That he captured it, moved it to upper, I think it was Indiana, because there was an area there that nobody lived in, and they had a nice national park, and he trapped it and took it up there and turned it loose. That was, like I said, 2007 or so. I saw it.
Which is about right.
I saw it in 2007. It was actually captured in 2009, 2010. It was moved to Indiana in 2011 or so because it was kept for about a year for study. It lost 30 pounds while it was being studied, and that's why they released it.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to run your show, and I apologize. You want me to step out and let you do the thing?
You don't got to step out, but I can do the thing.
Do the thing. Hey, everybody, I appreciate y'all coming. Right. I love each and every one of y'all like a brother and a sister, but if y'all give me any trouble tonight, I'll run every single one of y'all off this mountain. It's yours, Drew.
Y'all just forget where you saw our still sitting at. We've made people disappear before. But all right, guys, thank you all for coming in tonight, hanging out with me and Squatch, listening to all this. I mean, we done dumped a bunch of information on you guys tonight. A lot of stuff to think about, a lot of things to even research a little bit more if you're into it. Don't forget about your local library. There is more information out there than just what's at your fingertips. So that's going to be it for tonight.
Grab 1 second.
As always. What? Now what?
Never trust Google. Never trust Google. If you want to find out what's
I
going
trust
on,
Google. I just don't trust Wikipedia.
no, sir. No, Google has changed the number of buffalo in the Old West 3 times in the past 5 years. They went from 179 million down to 100 million, down to 100, like 96 million. Now it's at 74 million. Do you know why it's at 74 million? We have 75 million cows. They don't want us to have cows.
Every bit of research I've ever done said at one point in time there was over 100 million buffalo living in the confines of the United States until the late
Yes.
19th century, where the number had dwindled down to 10,000.
And now we're
And
at
now
like
we're back
40,000,
up to about 50,000, 45,000, something like that.
It's a debatable point because we keep track of the number of domesticated bison, but not the wild ones so much. We try, but
Exactly.
anyway, I'm done. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's all right. But that's it, guys. Again, thanks for stopping in, hanging out with us, and listening to all this information. Thank you, Squatch, for coming in co-hosting
Anytime,
with
bro.
me and running the show.
Send me the actual topic beforehand, and I'll focus on that. But when you're like, "Hey, will you come on and talk about something?" I'm like, "Sure," and I just go get whatever happens to come to mind. This is what we get.
Grab a. Well, we can get this and a little bit of that. Over here's a file I haven't looked at in a while. Here's some of that. But sounds like a plan. But all right, guys, don't forget Monday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, morning coffee and chat. Monday evening, we have PM show. God only knows what the hell we're going to do on there. We're going to try to get out and do some investigating over the weekend with Danny from Southern Michigan Paranormals. Haven't heard back from him yet, but since my buddy Alan goes back to England on Tuesday, we're going to try to get him to one more paranormal investigation before he balls back and goes back over across the pond. But do not forget, next Friday night, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ghost to Ghost PM. Special guest is Garan and Jamie from Paranormal Search. That's going to be a good one. They've been to some awesome frickin' epic locations here on this little trip of theirs. There's going to be a lot to talk about. But that's it for tonight. There's my Jamie girl right there, and I'm sure Garan's probably not very far behind. But you guys all take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you. God love you. We do. And we'll catch you out there.